All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We were just waiting on a quorum, but now that we have enough members present, I will call to order the Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization UPWP committee meeting. I'll start with the notice of non-discrimination. You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity or expression, veteran status, or background. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Ibu Qureshi, MPO staff at iquriashi@ctps.org or 857-702-3695 or via the chat box. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves, but always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please use the raise hand function. Find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. Please raise your hand via Zoom if you would like to use an AI note taker during this meeting. I'll pause for a moment in case anyone's using that would like to use a note taker. I'm not seeing any hands. And if you're on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. All right, introductions. Olivia, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Yes. MassDOT.
This is Chris Clem from MassDOT.
City of Newton.
This is David Kozas representing Mayor Rutan Fuller in City of Newton.
Inner Core Committee.
Good afternoon, Tom Bent, City of Somerville representing Mayor Ballantyne.
Metro West Regional Collaborative. Don't think I see Dennis, so I'll move on to Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
Julia Waller's here with MAPC.
MBTA Advisory Board. Don't think I see Hannah, so I'll move on to Three Rivers Interlocal Council.
Yeah, hi, Tom O'Rourke from the town of Norwood representing the Turk subregion.
City of Boston. I see in the chat, Jen, you are here. I don't know if you can unmute or not, but let us know.
Let's see.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yep. Jen Rowe, City of Boston representing Mayor Michelle Wu.
And lastly, we have Town of Rentham. Don't think I see any representative there, so that is the roll call.
Great, thanks, Olivia. Move on to agenda item 2. This is our first, actually public comments. Are there any members of the public that would like to provide a comment today? I see a raised hand from Wig. Wig, you can unmute yourself. Oh, I just muted you. I'm sorry. Go ahead once more.
Yeah, hi, this is Wig Zamor from Somerville. I haven't been to one of these meetings for a long time. But I just want to throw on the table for longer term consideration 2 things that I'm always interested in. Hi, Julia. The first is the potential to extend the Green Line from Union Square to Porter. Could be single track extension. It's very short. Single track are common for that, and you could have an intermediate passing spot. the benefit to that would be one that people getting to Porter could head to either end of downtown or places along the way. And secondly, I always think about the East Cambridge community, even though I'm from Somerville. They're kind of between the large development in Kendall and also at North Point, Cambridge Crossing. So I think it would help them to be able to get to the middle of their community and city more easily. Secondly, I'm always interested in whether people would be willing to consider urban ring using Grand Junction. That would unite the two of the largest research centers in the United States, which now have very difficult travel between them, namely Longwood Medical and Kendall MIT. And I'll stop there. Just wanted to throw those out in case folks have time at some point to consider them. Thank you.
Thanks, Big. Appreciate the comments and questions, and glad you could join us again. And hopefully you'll be joining us a little more in the future as well. Does anyone else from the public have a comment or question for the committee? Not seeing any raised hands. If anyone does have written comments, they can always provide a copy to staff by emailing upwp@ctps.org as well. And with that, I think we'll move on to the following agenda item. The first of our two action items on prior meeting minutes. These are the minutes from May 29th, 2025. Before I ask for a motion in a second, does anyone have any comments or questions on the meeting minutes? Not seeing any, so I will ask for a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from May 29th. I think you were first, Jen, at least on my screen.
Sure. Yes, I'll motion to approve the May 29th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Thanks, Jen. And Tom, would you like to second?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Great. Motion and a second. Olivia, please read the roll.
Chris Clem,
Chris Clem, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Julia Wallers,
Julia Wellers, yes.
Tom O'Rourke,
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
and Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Great. Thanks, Olivia, and thanks, everyone. That will bring us to our second action item and agenda item 3, the meeting minutes from July 10th. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the minutes? Not seeing any raised hands, so I will ask for a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Jen, I think you were first again.
Quickest to the draw today. I will motion to approve the July 10th, 2025 meeting minutes.
All right, motion made. Julia, would you like to second those?
Yes, I would. I will second that.
All right, thank you both. Olivia, please call the roll.
Yes, Chris Clem,
Chris Clem, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Julia Wallers,
Julia Wellers, yes.
Tom O'Rourke,
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
and Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Olivia, and everybody. So that will bring us to the main portion of the meeting today, a federal fiscal year 2026 UPWP debrief. Olivia, you can take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, and of course, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming to this meeting. Having a debrief is an important part to help us plan for the next cycle, which we are doing right now. We're always looking to tweak this process to make it better, so we appreciate you coming today and bringing your thoughts. And so the first thing I wanted to do is briefly recap the 2026 UPWP development cycle, since it's been a few months since we were in the midst of that process. So if we go on to the next slide, please. I have just a pretty brief or zoomed out timeline for us here. Overall, the document was developed from January to about mid-July. On July 17th, the UPWP was endorsed by the MPO board. And within this timeline, the UPWP committee met 6 times. First to kick off the cycle, and then we met 3 times in April to discuss both discrete studies and some of our MPO program work areas. And the last 2 meetings were dedicated to approving the draft and the final version of the document. I know I've said this before, but I'll reiterate it again. This timeline is certainly a little more condensed than what a typical year would look like. So for the next cycle, we are certainly planning to spread this out a little bit more. There probably will be more time in between some of these meetings. And we are planning to initiate the document development earlier and probably in the fall. So I just wanted to note that again. And something I wanted to specifically highlight was the second meeting we had in April where we discussed some of our program work areas with this group. So if we could go to the next slide, please. I think this will, kind of recapping this part of our development cycle, will set us up nicely for the discussion. So just as a reminder to recall this meeting, we brought 4 of our MPO staff to this meeting to talk to the committee about 4 of our programs: our Community Transportation Access Program, Freight Planning Program, Active Transportation Planning Program, and the Multimodal Mobility Infrastructure Program. So our staff provided a brief overview of what the program is and what we're planning to do next year, and then the committee had an opportunity to ask questions about our work and provide some feedback on what we're planning to do in the next fiscal year. And also related to this, we shared a survey earlier in the year, back in February, asking a similar question to all MPO members, asking for input on our ongoing initiatives. And I wanted to explain or provide a few examples of what we heard from the meeting and through the survey, and how we plan to take that feedback and incorporate it into our work. So if we could go to the next slide, please. I've just listed out here a few examples of what we heard. So first, we heard a suggestion related to our performance-based planning and programming work area to explore performance target setting beyond what's federally mandated and integrate that with our transportation improvement program and our long-range plan. And this is something that we are currently doing now. We're developing long-range performance targets beyond what is federally mandated, and we're using that for the LRTP. We also heard a suggestion to develop more plain language documents and to help us continue to improve the communication about our MPO work to the public and our stakeholders. And that is something that we are working or have worked into our work plan for our Community Transportation Access Program for federal fiscal year 2026, so this upcoming federal fiscal year. And related to our freight planning program, we heard from this group to study strategies that other municipalities have used to manage delivery times, parking behavior, and safety of freight vehicles. And something that we've marked for future years is to address this through building off of the MPO's federal fiscal year 2025 discrete study that's wrapping up right now, actually, on e-cargo bikes for first and last mile freight delivery. Also related to freight planning, we heard a suggestion to build upon the MPO's FFY 2023 Regional Freight Decarbonization Plan, which is something that we will start working on in 2026 as well. And also we heard the suggestion to find more opportunities to tie MPO work with land use. And so something that we're currently doing and will continue into the next fiscal year is studying the transit accessibility levels of affordable housing in our region and developing a gaps analysis for that. So that is one way our work kind of relates to transportation and land use. So these are just, of course, a few examples, but I wanted to show it here to provide kind of a line of sight to you all, how we've taken some input that you've provided us in the last cycle and how we're planning to use that within our work in the future. And if we could go on to the next slide. I just have one more visual here before we get into our discussion. I wanted to show again this funding chart from our 2026 document, which will go into effect very soon. I think it provides a great visual for how we allocate our resources and staff time. And as you can see, the biggest slice of this chart is what we call or categorize our work MPO support and 3C planning. And within that, it houses our 13 ongoing programs, which I've listed on the right side here, plus some general support to the MPO. And I know you've been hearing us say this throughout the cycle and even in past cycles too, that we've been trying to offer more opportunities for this committee to engage with our ongoing work efforts. That is something, of course, that we'd like to continue doing. We'd like to continue building on that momentum next cycle as well. So we're definitely planning to provide more and better opportunities for this group to engage with our ongoing work. And I wanted to note that because I think it leads us nicely into the discussion part of this meeting. So if we go on to the next slide, please. I have some pretty broad questions here to guide our conversation. Of course, we'd love to hear from you all what you think worked well last cycle, what you'd like us to continue doing, and also what things you think can be improved. And I wanted to kind of recap some of those slides that I just talked about, because we also would really love to know if you found value in speaking with our staff about our programs. If you have suggestions for how we can coordinate those discussions better in the future, we'd love to hear that, and kind of just generally how you all would like to engage with our ongoing work. That would be really helpful to hear. Yeah, and before I turn it back to the group, I will just say that Ibu is helping running the slides today, so if you wanted to go back to any of the slides that we just showed, please let us know. So with that, I'll turn it back. Thank you.
Thanks, Olivia. Yeah, very helpful debrief. Been a few months since we were last together, so appreciate the look back and look at the composition of the 26 work program, and then the ways in which, like at a high level, the committee's feedback helped to dictate some of the changes made in the upcoming work program as well. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion. Thoughts and comments from anyone? Obviously, the prompts on the screen are really helpful and open-ended, but if anyone has other thoughts relative to what Olivia just asked too, I'm happy to hear anything we have to say. Don't be shy. Leonard, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I tend to hold back anyways, but now since I'm not like an official part of this committee, I'm now representing Arlington, and Arlington is not an official member. I don't know, if that's because Arlington didn't have the bandwidth before, or because there's a limit to the number of board members that can be on the committee without triggering open meeting law issues. But anyways, commenting on what worked well last cycle, it was a compressed cycle, and we understand why. I think we did as well as we could, given the compression. But even if it wasn't, part of me misses the fact that we didn't have more public input. And like in the previous cycle, we asked the public for suggestions of studies. At the same time, I kind of feel that if we don't really have the funds to do justice to the public input, I know it's a little bit loaded, but I'm trying to be a little careful about how I say things. If we can't do enough of the studies that the public proposes, to make the public feels like it's worth the effort, then I guess I'm not too inclined to ask for a whole lot of public input. That said, I mean, if we get like 100 responses, then of course we're only going to be able to fund like 3 or 4 of them. So maybe at no point will we ever really be able to make the public feel that their input is valued. I mean, and forgive me once again because I feel that my language is a little sloppy, and is coming across more negatively than I feel. But I hope you get the point on that. And so I guess I toss it back to you all and say, I'm kind of wondering how other people feel, about the level of public engagement, and maybe what we think we should do differently this year with respect to last year and the year before. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Len. I think that's a great idea, and really understand your comments there. Before I go to Jen, I'll let Tegan respond if that's why you raise our hand. So go ahead, Tegan. We can't hear you. Your microphone might be up, if I can see on your video clearly.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
You can tell it's a new headset. I'm not used to having to deal with that. Sorry. So thanks, Len, for bringing up this topic. I actually wanted to jump in and answer because this is actually a bit, wouldn't want to bring in something that's broader than the UPWP itself. So I didn't want Olivia to have to kind of just address it on her own, which is that I think it's just important to differentiate between you are talking about absolutely correctly a specific avenue of public input that we have in the past utilized for the UPWP, a very specific piece of it being a survey that asks for study ideas that can be considered in the UPWP process. I do want to make sure we're distinguishing between that specific effort and the broader engagement and public outreach that we are doing and that we are folding into the development of the UPWP every year. So right now, what we've been doing as well with the long range plan is we have ongoing public engagement activities that asks people about what their needs are, what their vision for the region is, what we can do to help in terms of the transportation system. And we're taking that kind of in its entirety and we're pulling out the information that and the input that can be relevant and important in shaping things like the long range plan and the UPWP. So we are still doing an extensive amount of engagement, in fact, much more, I think, than we have in the past, and investing more of our resources in doing so. But I think you are bringing up a very concrete, specific engagement effort that we've engaged in the past, which is that survey process. So I just want to make sure we're clear on those two things, that we are still doing public engagement.
Yeah. Can I, Chris, jump in a little
Yeah,
bit?
Len, you want to respond real quick? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Jen, wrote. Yes, that's exactly what I was getting at, I'm taking and I guess it's for selfish reasons that I'd love seeing the public, suggestion of studies, because there are just a lot of good ideas. And as you know, I was like, can I just see the raw input? I just want to see like what they all said before anyone kind of digested. So I found value in that, but at the same time, I think if we do that, then, and it's not that we haven't, but then just let people know that we are really engaging you to get ideas. We won't be able to fund many of them. In fact, we'll be able to fund very few. It's like winning the lottery if we pick your study. But I think it's sometimes we let people know that, then there wouldn't be any sense of like, well, why am I even bothering? And we make it clear to them that we really value your ideas. That's it. Thank you. Sorry, Jen.
Thanks, Len, and thank you for that response again. Jen, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, just kind of adding to that conversation, maybe a couple, I don't know, thoughts or potential ideas. I definitely hear that tension between asking for something and to what degree does the question imply ability to deliver, which is definitely something we struggle with on a lot of our street design projects too. Because anyway, but that's beside the point. I think one thing that just kind of came to mind was whether there might be a way that we ask the question, to me, ultimately, what the discrete studies were about is what questions do people have about the future of transportation in the region, or transportation in the region in general. And I wonder if there's a way to to ask that in a way that it doesn't make it specific to just the UPWP, but could be more applicable to other things as well, that could still kind of generate the types of interesting input that Len has and others have been used to seeing in the past, but also may have broader applicability in how and something that I'd be curious to see. I've been appreciating the quarterly updates on what we're hearing from the public, and that I feel like that would be something that would be relevant. And I know way back in the first iteration of Go Boston 2030, we had this question truck that went around and asked people what is your question about getting around Boston in the future? And it actually generated a ton of interesting ideas. So and then the other maybe possible ideas, I wonder if there's a way to yay. Okay, yeah, the truck was a thing. It also had some fun. We still have these little hexagonal shaped pieces of paper that people use to write their question, I think. But the other thing I was wondering is now with the new advisory council and how it's made up, I wonder if there could be additional opportunities to pair a survey with perhaps there's a forum or something that some way of creating dialogue on this topic that would maybe attract more folks than would otherwise be responding to the MPO's email newsletters and whatnot. So anyway, two thoughts there.
Thanks, Jen. Julia.
Yeah, just a simple comment feedback about for the UPWP when we did the meeting to review the studies, just a plug for keeping that one in person. I felt like it was the most engaging and ability to really workshop ideas and different ways of thinking about them when we went to score them and vote on them. I remember sort of changing my mind about a few of them as a result of just having that conversation around the table at your office. So a plug to keep that went well, to do that again.
Thanks, Julia. David Kozis.
I often think that there's better ways to do all kinds of things. Just, in terms of the UPWP process, I sort of don't really know what to say. And I didn't go to, every meeting this time, but it just seems that, to me that compared to almost everything else, that, that it's well managed and it's professional and, people are responsive and it's, a fair process. And, we ended up with some, perfectly good list of projects. So I don't know. I think staff is just continuing to do a good job with this. So I guess we're just talking about little tweaks. Maybe I get, maybe my comment's not so helpful, but maybe we're just looking at little tweaks that some of the other folks have mentioned.
Thanks, David. And I think your comments are certainly helpful. I don't think staff is trying to rewrite the wheel by any means, but just make minor adjustments here and there so the process can improve for next year. Tom Bent, go ahead.
Thanks. I really can't add much. I agree with all the comments that have already come up. I actually thought, even though this was a short, it was condensed timeline this year, that it was very effective, and always looking for more public input. And I also, I've been an advocate for when we're actually having, decision meetings, if we can meet, in person. I always feel like that's it's just been more effective. I know, with the tip, I thought that was very helpful last year. And, but overall, I think staff's done a great job with the UPWP over the years. And not a lot, like you said earlier, I think David might have said it, maybe a tweak here or there, but overall, nothing that's jumping out at me right now.
Thanks, Tom. Tegan.
Could we, Olivia, would you mind popping back up to the slide with the pie chart on it? So I do want to just sort of from my own perspective, which I know Olivia is working with as staff with you all, I think your feedback, I agree with your feedback that Olivia's essentially done a great job and that it's a very professional and good process. Even, you know, given the fact that it was compressed, really a lot of the process went really, really well. I want to spend another minute kind of reminding us again, something we've talked about in the last couple of meetings around sort of some of the steps and directions we'd like to take this committee in. And just to remind us that when we talk about the UPWP, a lot of our historic time spent in these committee settings has been spent really focused on the very small piece of the pie that is ongoing MPO funded technical analysis. Wait, is that one? No, the blue one, new MPO funded discrete studies, which is a pretty small portion of the pie. What we are hoping to do with you all is, yes, improve that process, make sure we've got, you know, input that works. We do actually have a great universe that continues to exist that people have put their ideas into. We haven't lost any of the past input we've received. But what we also want to do is emphasize that in most of these spaces, there is actually room for public input. So not only on the discrete studies, but with the 13 ongoing programs, for example, some of that work is actually producing specific deliverables as well that will have their own public input processes, like an active transportation plan or something like that, but that are also part of how we're talking about the priorities of the MPO's work. So I think Olivia pointed out on another slide that, you know, we're going to come to more and keep talking more about programs and the spaces where this committee and the public can also kind of have influence over. But again, just kind of draw us back to this, that really the influenceable things that the MPO does is in the yellow section on here, which is, I don't know, sorry, roughly 60%, 60%. And then some additional technical analyses, discrete studies, and then usually the direct costs, those are consultants we've hired. And then there's also the resource management support activities, a little bit more technical and internal. And then 19% of the funding also goes towards MAPC studies and support and resources to the MPO. So just kind of want to keep us at that bigger picture, because I think historically we've kind of narrowed, this group has sort of narrowed its perspective a little bit on that discrete study chunk, whereas you actually have influence and input over quite a bit more than that particular segment. So thank you for indulging me. Just want to make sure we have that perspective.
Yeah, thanks for sort of recentering that, Tegan. I know that the role of the committee changed a little bit this year and past years, but to your point, like the work program is composed of a much greater portion of the 13 ongoing programs, so that we understand that and can ask more pointed questions and sort of not dictate, but influence what goes on there. We can have a larger impact to the work program overall. Tom, you're top of my screen, so you go ahead.
Thank you. Tegan, thank you for going back to that. I was struck by how small that blue piece of the pie was when we saw that. But good to address some of those other things too going forward. I just wanted to go on record with my colleagues as saying I thought that this went really well this year, and appreciate the work of the MPO staff, and also that I too would be in favor of at least some meetings in person if we could do that.
Thanks, Tom. Agree with that there, and agree with the in-person meetings. We only had one early on, but I found it to be super effective and valuable, especially for myself being new to the chair. Leonard.
Thank you, but I'm willing to go after Jen if you'd like, Mira. So since I'm
if you'd like to go first,
since I'm technically not a part of the committee at this point, so
I keep forgetting, but
no
thank you.
problem.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Len.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I had maybe two other things that I would want to bring. One was around the sorry, my train of thought. Okay, so one, I was curious. So I know actually in that in-person meeting, we had there was a lot of I think I found it very productive, also similar to what others have said. And I think part of it was like this back and forth with the folks who manage the different programs. So I definitely second like kind of continuing to engage them in these conversations, maybe even more and earlier as we start like thinking about ideas. And I actually think like there may be more like I think there was like an interesting evolution over a series of meetings. I think those were those April meetings where like some of the ideas got refined, and maybe if we had the luxury of more time, there could be more like optimization of each of those ideas. So we're really like selecting everything from what's already been made the best it could possibly be from the perspective of this group. The one other thing that kind of was interesting to me that I hadn't seen as much before at that meeting was like sort of this back and forth around, oh, like this scope of work is being advanced in this way, but under these ongoing programs by CTPS, and also like, oh, like MAPC is actually working on this scope of work in this way. And so there was this, I don't know, a lot, I learned a lot what was going on in both of those areas, and I wonder if that's something we can. I think especially I think we've seen a bit more from CTPS on some of the ongoing programs, as to Tegan's point, like you've been trying to open up that a bit more and get us more engagement in that. But I think also I'd be really curious to learn more about what MAPC has in mind for what they're advancing in the future, so that we can kind of know a little bit more about that and maybe be able to make some of those connections earlier, maybe shape things a little bit if we have good ideas that you all want to like move towards.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, certainly agree with those comments. I found the meetings in which other program managers engage with the committee to be really valuable and really informative about what's going on, the ways in which a lot of the ideas that we might have are already active studies or programs by CTPS or MAPC. So maybe there's an opportunity with a more normal cycle where we kick things off a little earlier for staff to come again a bit earlier. So we remind ourselves and they tell us what's going on. Leonard, thank you for your patience. You can go ahead.
Oh, no problem. The nice thing about waiting is it often will affect what I'm going to say, and sometimes I'll say less as a result, and that's okay. Yeah. But first, a question. So my recollection from the last cycle is that all the studies that were presented to us were created by staff, right?
Staff? Do you remember? I know we had surveys went to the committee, the MPO, and others.
Yeah.
But
Oh, sorry. Yes, that we had, I believe, 7 studies that we presented to this committee to further talk about.
Right.
And one of those was kind of developed based on, I think, Jen's suggestion. That was the roadway pricing
Okay.
communication study. That one we as staff developed a little bit further, but the initial idea came from Jen, but the rest were staff.
Okay, and fine. Okay, and so it's good to know, because that was my recollection, and to a certain extent, I'm fine with going that route. I mean, again, and as Tegan said, you have plenty universe, and if you can, increase that universe, through engagement, with the public at large, and maybe even the new community. I'm sorry, regional transit, the Community Advisory Council. That would be great, and actually, I'm glad she can say what she said, because I was going to say, look at me, I like the fact that we could potentially engage on the other programs. When I was part of the Advisory Council, one of the things we would do is take that opportunity our meeting opportunity to go into the studies that had been presented to the board. I found that very helpful. And when it comes to engaging the staff, with respect to the other programs, I'd be very much in favor of that. I hesitated to bring it up because I can see it only in the context of more meetings, or these meetings would be longer meetings. And I'm all for that, but I know that we're all busy, and maybe for a lot of people, having a 4-month break is a good thing, because they can focus on other MPO related things, of course, but it would require more time from us, I think, if we're going to, engage the staff more, on the other programs, which I think are very interesting. So thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. And I'm sure that's something that staff is considering now. Like, we don't want to have meetings for the sake of having meetings. We want to make sure they're valuable, engaging, and everybody involved is getting the most out of them.
And one more thing, if we're going to do in person, please do a hybrid component to it.
Definitely will.
Thanks. Sure.
Yep. Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just another maybe potential idea of how to, I don't know, that came to my mind was that maybe help as like pre us really kicking things off with the UPWP is, and I don't want similar to Len, I don't want to pay more work for people, but one of the things that kind of I've been interested in or have enjoyed, I don't know, enjoyed like observing is some of like the ways that the scopes of work have kind of, a lot of these studies like become part 2 studies, and like it sort of evolves as things in the transportation system and the world change, and I've seen that both on the CTPS side with like the freight decarbonization work and some of the curb side work, and I know there's a bajillion other examples that aren't coming to mind now, but also on the MAPC side with the like parking studies, like the perfect fit, etc. Anyway, so I'm curious if there could be like maybe as something to help us think of, and those are just the street studies, but there's also, or I know that there's also kind of been evolutions of like the freight program, for example. I wonder if there's a way that the staff of both entities could like help us kind of visualize some of that like interesting history. And I don't want to, again, like make more work, but it would be just sort of a, I know there's like aspects that I'm sort of aware of because I've been in the space for a decent amount of time, but I also know there's like a fascinating history that I am not aware of. So anyway, that's just an interest of mine. And I'd be curious if others have thoughts around that as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Jen. And if I'm understanding correctly, you're sort of asking like, where are the studies that we've completed in the past coming from? Are they products of previous studies with new action items? Are they coming from follow from the state studies or different MPOs or regional planning partners like MAPC? Something I was going to say earlier that just came to mind from that is some of the other regions working closely with them over the last 4 years lack the resources for a more thorough public engagement effort throughout the UPWP cycle. So they rely heavily on the robust public engagement they performed during their 4-year RTP updates. And from all the public feedback that they received during that year or so that they update that plan, they're able to sort of kind of hone ideas from that. And because they're updated right now every 4 years, a lot of those ideas are kind of always really relevant within that cycle. So those are my comments, I guess. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, right back to you, Jen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and just kind of adding on to that too. Like, it just occurred to me, like, I feel like there's been certain types of like topic areas that have kind of become of interest, and like I know like the micromobility like last mile shuttle thing like was a thing a decade and a half ago or something, maybe more, and then it sort of petered out, and then it came up again, and so, I don't know, I just be like, so I'm almost seeing some sort of like a data visualization style look at sort of the outputs, and yeah, but also I love the idea of like bringing in ideas that we're hearing from the public as well. I think we were speaking to.
Thanks. Ibu, do you want to take us back to the next slide about the questions, just in case there's other thing we've hit on a lot. This has been a great conversation, but just want to recenter us again if we want to stick to what we have. Oh, Ben Muller, welcome. Go ahead.
Hey everyone, just been listening in, but I had some thoughts about sort of how we frame some of the conversations going into the cycle. I was just looking through, there's this really neat diagram in the current UPWP that connects the LRTP and the TIP and the UPWP and then the performance management sort of process. And I think it would be helpful for sort of this cycle when we're talking about both the 3C work and the sort of discrete studies to have that tie back to like, was this in the LRTP? What sort of what are the goal areas that this particular work is supporting? Because we do have, there was a list sort of in chapter 2 and 3 of the long range plan that of here's some things we should study based on what we heard through this robust public process. Here's things that we want to get done in the next few years. And so I think it would be helpful to kind of have that as a framework while we're looking at study ideas.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment, Ben. And that I want to say that there are a few regions that do something along the lines of that. Connecting not only the source of the study, but what might the product be aimed at achieving and how it connects to goals, be it performance measures, stuff that's documented in the long range plan, the tip, etc. So I think that's a great point. Appreciate the comment. Megan.
Sorry for continually jumping in, but thanks for that suggestion, Ben. That is something we are talking about and working on kind of very actively right now that I think we can be much better at. And so one thing I would want to ask is Chris, as you said, if there are some examples that you think are really effective in the way some other folks you've seen, make those connections, if you can point us towards those, that would be wonderful. I always love learning from our peers and building off of what they've been able to accomplish as well.
I can definitely try to do that. Thanks, Megan.
If it's okay, I have another question. Logistic wise, I'm curious to know from this group if anyone has any strong opinions just about like meeting dates and times. If Thursday afternoons, typically at 1, work for everyone, or if you prefer a different day of the week. Of course, we're open to changing that for the next cycle. So that's just something that will help me plan the timeline, but I don't know if anyone had any strong feelings.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we all know that Thursdays 10, every other Thursday is usually MPO meetings. So I don't know if people can get a little tired, especially during the TIP UPWP cycle. If we'd want to change that to a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Tom, Ben, any thoughts?
I'm good with the Thursday after the MPO meeting. That way it's not another day they have to schedule something. And then obviously if it's a meeting where we're going to meet in person, we might have to shift it around a little bit. But if the MPO meeting's virtual, but yeah, no, I'm fine with that Thursday.
Thanks, Tom. Tom O'Rourke.
Yeah, it's fine with me too. But if you had to change it, that usually wouldn't be an issue. So flexible.
Right.
Yep.
Appreciate the flexibility. Yeah, and that's a great point about any in-person meetings at the MPO. It'd be nice to just meet right in the afternoon, the UPWP committee. Jen Rowe.
Yeah, just I think with enough notice, I could probably make a Tuesday or Wednesday work. I will say those are the 2 days that all city street staff are in person, so people tend to schedule a lot of meetings on those days. So Thursdays do kind of work pretty well, and especially because I think of them as the MPO days. But also, if there's compelling reasons to move it, can be flexible.
Got it. Thank you. I know Olivia is always very communicative ahead of meetings, so no surprises in the future. And Julia, your last day is 10/17. I'm glad you could join us. I wasn't sure if you had already left, but wishing you the best when you do leave.
I have physically left, but I'm still
that was it.
coming to you live from Los Osos, California.
So I hope you're enjoying some better weather than the rain we're all experiencing right now.
It only has rained once since I've been here, and it was glorious.
Nice.
You need rain. You need rain out there. So
yes. Well, looking forward to. I mean, sad to see you go, but looking forward to your replacement. You got big shoes to fill.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing any more hands. I know we're running short on time. I think this is only scheduled for an hour-long meeting. So if everyone's okay, and if staff has gotten enough feedback from the conversation, we can go ahead and move on to member items.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think this has been helpful. I appreciated hearing everyone's thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Olivia. Any members have any items they'd like to share with the committee?
I'll just share something that was passed along in our chat earlier today. There's an event this evening led by Sasaki, but it looks like our fellow MPO member Brad Ralston is presenting as part of it on how mobility equity takes shape in design. So I'll put the link in the chat in case anyone else is around and wants to join.
Cool. Thanks, Jen. If there's no other member items, I do have one thing to share. I am leaving my position in MassDOT's planning office next Friday. So I'll be vacating my seat as the chair and my role as liaison to the Boston Region MPO. I'm joining the community grants group in the highway division, so not going too far, but I might see some of you less, but perhaps some of you more. Getting the chance to work with more municipalities sort of directly. So I want to thank everyone for the valuable year that has seemed to flown by, especially the last 6 to 9 months. The committee's played a great role in shaping the upcoming work program, and it's great to meet everyone, and I hope to see everyone soon in my new role.
You run a great meeting, Chris.
Thank you,
Yes,
Julia.
do. Yep. Yeah, thank you.
Yep, appreciate the kind words. And I want to let folks know that in the interim, Derek Schuster, who is my manager of the MPO activities team, will be filling my role as committee chair and likely liaison to the Boston region. We do have a few postings out for new hires, so we're expecting 2 to 3 new members of the team sometime around the holiday season. So you might get to engage with a few new folks too, which will be exciting. And Derek Schuster might be here. I know he is traveling at present, but if you've never met Derek, great guy.
Here.
Hey, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Here. Yeah, at the moment. Sorry, my screen's not on, but yeah, I will be chairing in the interim until the MPO activities team and Mass.OTP is fully staffed. But I just want to say thanks, Chris, for running point with everything for UPWP committee and Boston MPO. And if anyone has any concerns in the meantime for Mass.OTP,
Thanks, Schuster. I think you cut out a little bit at the end there, but I think everything you said. But you'll do great with the committee and got a lot of experience, so everyone will be in good hands. Any other member items? Not seeing any. I think we can move on to our last item, and that will be our next meeting, which should be the kickoff of the FY 2027 cycle. And there's no scheduled date for that just yet, but Olivia will be in touch with everybody to get something on the calendar soon. And I think we need a motion and a second to adjourn. Tom Bett.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Tom.
I'll
Jen.
second it.
Oh, somebody beat you. I'm sorry, Jen. All right, Olivia, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Actually, I think we're all good.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
Oh, right, it's an all in favor type of situation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Hearing ayes, any nays? Probably not. All right. Thanks, everyone. Been a great cycle, and hope to see you all.
Thank you, everyone. It's
Yep,
great to
thank
work with
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Take care, Chris.